Shalom, Israel. This is Elder Stephen coming with another class for you. This evening, we're going to be discussing the land. The land. When you hear in the Bible, and the Bible starts talking about land, the land of our forefathers, the land of milk and honey, oftentimes you think carnally. Here at Elders of Israel, we teach the spiritual understanding of the law. And the term land means something different carnally than it does spiritually. If you're talking about land carnally, you're talking about a piece of the ground, the earth, a place, a city, a country, something of that nature, right? A physical land space or a land mass. But the Bible is not talking about that. Tonight, we will discuss what the Bible means when it talks about land. Spiritually, it is not talking about a physical land, but a spiritual land, which is different than what you have been taught. When reading the Bible, it is important that you think spiritual in order to get the proper understanding of what it is conveying. This simple misunderstanding of one word has caused major ramifications in the world and in geopolitics. People are literally warring and dying as a result of the belief that the Most High's land is a physical patch in the earth, meaning Israel, that country that everybody's fighting over right now. But the Most High is not carnal. And once you accept that simple concept, you will be able to see what he is saying to you. All right? So again, you're going to have to get on a spiritual plane. Let your mind wander to a spiritual plane. When you're reading these words, your mind has to be trained to think spiritually. We always read a couple of verses in order to get us into that frame of mind. We're going to go, as we generally do, to Hosea. Hosea chapter 12 and verse 10. I have spoken by the prophets and have multiplied visions and used similitudes by the ministry of the prophets. He's telling you, the prophets wrote something, and on its face value, you get a certain understanding of what it's saying, carnally. But there are similitudes in what they have written. That's the part you're going to have to know in order to be redeemed, because that's Christ's doctrine. The prophets wrote the Bible two ways, spiritually and carnally. Okay? We teach you the spiritual understanding of this book because that's what Christ told us to do. All right? But if you continue to follow the book according to the carnal understanding, you are not going to get what Christ is telling you. You are not going to get what the Most High is trying to explain to you. Okay? So the Bible is telling you, the Bible is written two ways. You got to get the spiritual understanding. Job chapter 11 and verse 6. That he would show thee the secrets of wisdom. There are secrets to getting understanding. The secret is the spiritual part, because you can't see it. That's why you're not able to understand what the Most High is saying. That they are double to that which is. Okay, he's letting you know. The prophets wrote the Bible two ways. There is a carnal understanding that means one thing, and then there's a spiritual understanding that means something totally different. The spiritual understanding is what Christ left us. If you're following the carnal understanding, you're not following Christ. And when the day comes, you're not going to be redeemed because you're not following his example. Okay? We're teaching you the example that he left. A lot of these other camps are keeping you in Moses' law. Moses' law is done away with. If you go back to the video that we did about King David, we go to Acts 15 and we show you where the disciples, to include Peter and James, instructed us to stop doing Moses' law. They said, don't do that anymore. They called it a yoke that those Pharisees who converted were trying to put on the people. Moses' law is counter to the law that Christ left us. Okay? So that's what we teach here. You have to get the spiritual side in order to be redeemed. All right. So now moving along. The Most High is omnipotent and has the ability to exist in multiple planes of reality. We as people live in a carnal plane and are unaware of the spiritual plane. Okay? The Most High sent Christ to give us an explanation of the spiritual. And we must establish faith, meaning belief, that it exists as Christ explained it to us. Note that the Most High manifested a man, Christ, to speak for him in this carnal plane we live in. You can go to John 1:1 to let you know he's the Word of God. Stop looking at him as just a man or a prophet or a spiritual deity. Look at him as the Word of God. When he spoke the words that the Most High told him to speak, so that we can hear those words and follow and understand. Okay? Because the Most High can't speak to us directly because we can't deal with it. We can't deal with listening to a God speak to us. Our mind can't get around that concept. All right? He manifested a man to come and tell you what he's saying. All right? So now let's start to break down the land. We first want to go to Genesis 1 to give you an understanding of what is being said. It is not what you think or have been told before. Remember, the Most High is spiritual. So you need to think spiritual in order to understand what he's saying. So please put on your spiritual thinking caps. This class is kind of complicated if you can't see it spiritually. All right. So we're going to get started. We're going to go to Genesis 1:1. And we're going to break down a whole lot of stuff for you here. All right. Again, this class is meat. This class is meat. We are now going to be teaching meat because you can't get the kingdom if you don't understand what you need to do. You got to be able to read this book. So you got to understand the meat. Okay? So when you start listening to these verses spiritually, you're going to understand what it's saying. That's the meat. Okay? So now we're going to go to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. That means something. When it says God created the heaven, the spiritual, and the earth, the carnal, he's making a distinction between spiritual and carnal. All right? Go with me on this and you'll see it in the end if you maintain the acceptance of the spiritual understanding. All right? Just go with me. The earth, the carnal doctrine, was without form and void, and darkness was upon the deep. At this point, the carnal world, nor the carnal doctrines that man will later develop, exist. That's what that darkness is talking about. We can translate it saying that there is no understanding by the indication of the word darkness. Darkness means ignorance. Light, sun, morning, day, all that stuff means wisdom and knowledge. All right? But darkness, evening, shadow, those things mean ignorance. All right? They mean ignorance. All I'm doing is explaining to you some of these words so you can start reading the Bible spiritually and you'll understand what the words mean. And then you'll be able to get a better understanding. All right? And God said, let there be light. And there was light. Light means wisdom. All right? Light means wisdom. And God called the light day. The Bible is telling you both those words, light and day, mean the same thing in the Bible. Okay? Light and day. When you see light and you see day, they mean the same thing. God called the light day. So he's telling you, light and day mean the same thing. And the darkness he called night. Night and darkness mean the same thing. Similar words to night and darkness mean the same thing in the Bible. And the evening and the morning were the first day. So I said a few things. So let's go and prove what I'm saying to be true. All right. So we're gonna find out what the sun is talking about. We're going to go to Ecclesiastes 7 and 11. Wisdom is good with an inheritance, and by it there is profit to them that see the sun. It's making a comparison of wisdom and sun. The sun is wisdom. Okay, when you see the word sun in the Bible, it's talking about wisdom. Jeremiah chapter 15 and verse 9. She that hath borne 7 languishes, she hath given up the ghost. Her sun is gone down while it is yet day. She hath been ashamed and confounded, and the residue of them will I deliver to the sword before their enemies, saith the Lord. So it's telling you that when the sun goes down means confounded. So wisdom going down is people being confounded. The sun going down is talking about people becoming confounded, losing wisdom. All right? So the sun represents wisdom. John chapter 8, verse 12. Then spake Jesus again unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have light of life. Christ is the light. All right. Christ has all the wisdom you need in order to get salvation. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 8. The Lord sent a word into Jacob, and hath lighted upon Israel. So he's letting you know, the Most High is telling you he gave wisdom to Israel. All right? He sent the word. The word is the light. That's wisdom. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 23. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and reproofs of instructions are the way of life. So it's letting you know that the commandments are the light. There's wisdom in understanding the commandments, the spiritual commandments. So you've gotten some examples of us using the word sun, light. It says they all mean the same thing. They mean wisdom. Okay? So we've pulled some verses that include some of the different usages of that term. They all mean wisdom. Okay? So now, let's see darkness, night, evening, so we can give you an understanding that when the Bible's saying darkness, it means lack of understanding or ignorance. So let's go to Micha chapter 3, verse 6. Therefore night shall be unto you, that ye shall not have a vision, and it shall be dark unto you, that ye shall not divine. And the sun shall go down over the prophets, and the day shall be dark over them. It's saying the prophets going to lose their understanding and their wisdom. That's what that's saying. So when it's using dark, it's saying dark means ignorance. Ezekiel chapter 32, verse 7. And when I shall put thee out, I will cover the heaven, and make the stars thereof dark, and I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light, and the bright lights of heaven will I make dark over thee, and set darkness upon thy land, saith the Lord. I will also vex the heart of many people, and I will bring thy destruction among the nations, into the countries which thou hast not known. So it's telling you that the Most High is going to take away the wisdom. All right? The people are not going to have any wisdom. Matthew chapter 24, verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. So it's telling you it's going to be darkness. Ignorance is going to come. Okay? So people are not going to have knowledge and wisdom in those days of tribulation, which we're going through right now. So you got a pretty good understanding of what the Bible is talking about when it's talking about what the sun means and what the darkness means, what the light means. So when we were speaking about Genesis 1, you're starting to see they mean something different than what you've been taught. Okay, so let's go back to Genesis chapter 1, and we're going to start now at verse 6. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Now, you've been taught that firmament means, it's talking about the separation of heaven from earth and all of that other stuff, the cosmos and all this other stuff, right? That's carnal, what the firmament is. But what this is saying, he made a division between the waters. Remember, I told you earlier, he created the heavens and the earth. And I told you that meant something. That meant he separated the spiritual from the carnal, right? So let's read this again. Verse 6, and God said, let there be a firmament, a division in the midst of the waters. It's talking about a division. And let it divide the waters from the waters. What waters? It's talking about the spiritual waters in heaven from the carnal waters on earth. All right? Because there's a spiritual understanding that we don't have the capacity to understand down here. But he also made a carnal understanding that we can understand. But there's levels in this carnal understanding that he gave us. Because we live in the carnal. But we have to learn to think spiritual. All right? So he separated that. Right? So let's give you the understanding of what the word water means. Okay? You should know by now that water means understanding, wisdom, the word. Okay? A doctrine. Okay? So he's separating doctrines. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 26. That he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word. The word is water. The word is a doctrine. John chapter 15, verse 3. Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Water is the word. Water cleans. Okay? It sanctifies. All right? Let's go to Proverbs 18 in verse 4. The words of a man's mouth are as deep waters. Y'all see that? And the wellspring of wisdom as a flowing brook. So it's letting you know. Water means wisdom, word, doctrine. Okay? So let's read this again so that you can get it. Genesis chapter 1, verse 6. And the Lord said, let there be a firmament division in the midst in the middle. Okay? That's dividing something. In the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. All right? So the waters are being divided. The spiritual waters from the carnal waters. All right? That's wisdom, understanding. There's carnal understanding and there's spiritual understanding. The Most High is dividing that stuff. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament, earth, from the waters which were above the firmament, heaven. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. And the evening and the morning were the second day. All right? So it's letting you know that the Most High separated spiritual understanding from carnal understanding. So now, let's move on to verse 9. And God said, let the waters under the heaven, carnal. We just said he separated the waters under the heaven from the waters above heaven. All right. So he's talking about the carnal. He said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. Okay. So when it's talking about dry land, dry means without water, ignorance. okay, without understanding, without wisdom. Dry land is a land which you're going to understand. A land is the ministry. The dry land is a ministry without understanding. All right. The land is the vehicle of ignorance that he's talking about, which is going to be a ministry, a doctrine. Y'all got that? So let's read it again. He said, and God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land, the ministry of ignorance, appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth. Okay, the Bible is telling you both those terms, dry land and earth, mean the same thing. So when you see the word earth, it's talking about dry land. It's talking about carnal. That's what that means. And the gathering together of waters he called seas. The Bible is telling you that seas mean gathering together of waters. Waters is understanding, wisdom, doctrines. All right? So when the Bible is talking about the seas, it's talking about wisdom, understanding, where people go to get understanding. You got that? The Most High said, let's keep reading. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass. So it's let the earth, carnal understanding or doctrine, bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed. Okay, grass and herbs are meat. Okay, so it's telling you, he's saying that he's creating doctrines in the carnal understanding. Y'all see that? Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed. The word, the seed is the word, or a follower of the word. So it can be talking about the seed of Abraham. They're a follower of Abraham. But the seed is actually the word, and we're going to get it in a second. And the tree. Trees are men. All right. Yielding fruit. Fruit is meat, understanding, wisdom. Okay. After his kind. The kind that he's speaking of now is the carnal, because he said the earth, the dry land, whose seed or understanding was in itself. Dry means no understanding. All right. So we're going to get some verses to give you that understanding. So everything I'm saying, I'm going to give you precepts to show you that it means what I'm telling you it means. We're going to go to Job chapter 12, and we're going to start at verse 12. With the ancient is wisdom, and in length of days understanding. With him is wisdom and strength. He hath counsel and understanding. Behold, he breaketh down, and it cannot be built again. He shutteth up a man, and there can be no opening. Behold, he withholdeth the waters. Waters is understanding. And they dry up. Also he sendeth them out, and they overturn the earth. So when you withhold the water, when you withhold the understanding, it dries up. It becomes ignorance. Psalms chapter 63, verse 1. O God, thou art my God. Early will I seek thee. My soul thirsteth for thee. My flesh longeth for thee in a dry and thirsty land where no water is. So when it's talking about dry land, meaning no water, the land is the ministry, the vehicle. All right. You're going to get it. Keep listening. All right. We're going to go to Psalms 107. Write these precepts down. Psalms 107 and verse 33. He turneth the rivers into a wilderness. Wilderness is like a dry desert, okay? The water springs into dry ground. All right? A fruitful land into barrenness, for the wickedness of them that dwell therein. He's talking about people dwelling in these ministries. Verse 35. He turneth the wilderness into a standing water. So he can do the opposite as well. And dry ground into water springs. So he can take a place where there's no understanding, and he can give understanding to that place. All right. So that land, the ministry, can be a dry land, meaning it has no understanding or no wisdom, or there's water there. All right. It has water, meaning it's got understanding. All right. So now, let you get this seed, what the seed means. We're going to go to Luke chapter 8 and verse 11. Now the parable is this. The seed is the word of God. So the seed is the word, or a follower of the word. Like I mentioned before, the seed of Abraham. Followers of Abraham. Okay? So you'll learn also when it says seed or children. It's talking about followers. Okay? So, let's move on so we can give you the tree. Mark 8 and verse 24. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. A tree is a man. We're going to go to 1 Corinthians 3 so I can give you what this meat, fruit, means. All right? 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Verse 1. And I, brethren, could not speak unto you as unto spiritual, but as unto carnal, even as unto babes in Christ. I have fed you milk and not meat. For hitherto ye were not able to bear it, neither yet now are ye able. So he's telling you meat is understanding. Meat is fruit. The fruit that trees bear, the fruit that men teach, that's meat. That's what y'all getting now, is meat. Y'all starting to get the understanding of what this thing is saying. Let's go back to Genesis 1 and we're going to read it again. We're going to start at verse 9. And God said, let the waters under heaven be gathered together unto one place. Let the dry land appear. So we told you dry means no understanding. All right? We brought the precepts for it. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth. So he's letting you know it's carnal. That's the carnal. All right? The Bible is telling you both of those terms. Dry land and earth mean the same thing. And the gathering together of waters he called seas. The Bible is telling you. Gathering together of that seas mean gathering together of waters or understanding, wisdom, doctrines. They all mean the same thing. All right. It says, and God said, let the earth, which we understand is carnal understanding, or doctrines, right? Bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed. We said seed is the word or a follower of the word. And the tree, which is a man, yielding fruit, understanding after his kind. This carnal understanding, okay? Whose seed, again, the seed is his word. Understanding was in itself, okay? So, it's telling you the Most High has created carnal doctrines. Now that you have the spiritual meaning of the words, let's learn about the first land. All right. Again, the land is the ministry. The first land was a garden in Eden. Another name for this land, doctrine, ministry is Jerusalem. That's the first land.